Okay, so, all right, so here's the lab. Some of you may have been in this lab before, I'm not sure. But this is the front, I'm standing at the front of the lab. I'm looking over the left side of the lab. This is where material would be left for you. Every lab is different, and you need to have some materials that you won't find in your desk, and you will find that over here. There's benches. Okay, typically there's we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 benches. You can have 4 people per bench. So this room is ideal for 24 students. Okay, so I'll show you what's at each bench a little bit. So we have water bottles here, deionized water, and we'll use that at different times. And we'll also have, in a similar bottle, you'll have soap. And sometimes it's hard to make sure that you don't get them mixed up. Okay. You have Kim wipes here. They're like tissue papers to wipe off like glassware. We have electronic balance. Okay. And I'm going to be using that today. This balance, you can set it for different units, but the units we'll be using is grams, and it goes to the hundredth. Okay. And that's kind of important when we when you use it. Okay. All right. So this is called a centrifuge, and we'll be using that in a lab in the future, in near future. Okay. In the back of the lab, there's these guys back here. Okay. These are called hoods, and what they are is they're like vacuums. And what you do is you can put materials in here and turn the hood on, and you can get a vacuum, which will basically pull out vapors that you don't want in the room. And you can use this for, you can also do experiments in here. You can hear that pretty good, okay? And so if you do an experiment here, like work with ammonia or whatever, and you don't want it to come into the room and have that ammonia smell, you do it in the hood, and it'll blow the ammonia out of the room. Okay. All right. We have here hot plates and stir plates, and I will show you how to use them. In one experiment, it's probably the last experiment. Okay, it's now I'm in the back of the lab looking forward, and you can see from your point of view often. Okay. All right. Okay, so over here, this is where we set up the experiments, and we have our chemicals back here. This is typically where I just go, maybe the person that's helping set up the labs. Okay, so next thing is whenever we do the labs, what you do is you would come in, and I will sign you a key. All right, so this is key 30, and what you have to do is you have to find the drawer for 30. Okay. And hang with me here. Okay, here she is. Okay. All right. And what you do is when you come into the lab, one of the first things you would do, besides getting your goggles, and I'll show you where to get those in a minute, and taking care of your books and your other things that may get in the way, you get your key, come over to your drawer, and then open it up, and you'll find some things in here that you will use. Okay, now I'm going to go over those. Okay, so this is called a beaker. And this beaker here is a 1,000 ml beaker. All right, and we have different sizes. Okay, separate them. This is a 400 ml beaker. What I want you to pay attention to here, it says 400 ml beakers, but if you notice, the marks don't go up to 400. They only go up to 300, and it says plus or minus 5%. Okay, so what this means is if you're going to use this guy to measure out a certain volume, you're not going to be correct. Okay, so let's say I want to measure out 100 mils. Okay, so that would be right about there. And you put in 100 mils, and you think you got 100 mils right there. Well, the plus or 5 minus 5 means is that that's how much you're off. Okay, beakers you will not use for measuring. You'll be using them to do experiments in and also to hold materials. Okay, another type of glassware is called an Erlenmeyer flask. Okay, and I'll write these out for you, or they should be in your book. This guy says 250 mils, but if you notice it only goes up to 200. So beakers and Erlenmeyer flasks are imprecise in terms of measuring precise volumes. They're good for getting approximate volumes. Okay, this guy here is called a graduated cylinder, and this is what you would measure with volume. And I'll be using this in a lab in a few minutes. Okay, so you can see this one goes up to 100. All right, see what's good of you here. Okay, and it measures into ones. Where is it? So, whoops. So it's 91, 92, 93, 94, 95. Okay, and so forth. Okay, and in the precision video that I told you, is that when you measure volume in this guy, you would go to the tenths. So you wouldn't have a measurement of like 91. You'd have a measurement of 91.5. Okay, so whatever number that you can actually measure to, in this case the ones, you're allowed to go one more digit than you can actually read. Okay, you also have a thermometer and test tubes and so forth, which I'll be using when I do the labs. Okay, walk over here. Okay, back here is where glassware is. All right. Okay, so you can see the beakers and so forth in here, and volumetric flask, which we won't be using for 110, and we have others. Okay, so and this is space where I'll be where I'll get stuff that maybe you need that isn't out here. All right, a couple more things is that when you come, so here's a door, come in from the lab. Here's the coat rack, and this is where you put your coats as soon as you walk in. What you do is you go to the eyeglass, the goggle cabinet, and you grab goggles to go do an experiment. Okay, when you get done with the goggles, you'll come back and put them in here. Sorry if this is going all over the place. And then there's a dial on the side to turn on UV light to disinfect anything. All right, so try not to get you seasick. Okay, so that's sort of an intro to what the lab looks like. And what I'll do now is I'll set up lab number 1, which is identification of an unknown pure substance. And I'll do the lab for you, and we'll see how it goes. Okay.